Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the PivotBoss pre-market video for Thursday, May 20th, 2021. I am Frank Ochoa, aka PivotBoss. Here's a look at the daily time frame of the ES. If you take this trend line that goes below the lows here since last November here, you'll notice a very clear uptrending market. Again, we've mentioned how price has continued to develop very good market structure along the way, very clear LVNs along the way, great well developed HVNs as well, just really good market structure all the way up. This continues to be the case. Even though we've had a little bit of a pullback here, we could see a pullback as deep as 4K or in this LVN zone here before this thing attempts to even push higher. But until price can no longer hold that 4K, we're still likely headed either within the range sideways or much higher down the road as this market continues this very clear uptrending phase. As soon as price fails to hold 4K, there's the potential to rotate all the way back to the other side of that range, as deep as 3600 to 3700, somewhere in that zone. But until then, again, all systems still seem a go to the upside. As a reminder here, again, we do have a very clear rejection that developed in the previous day. It fell just shy of the previous week's low. Typically speaking, you'd like to see a lower low rejection before this thing can forcefully return higher. Doesn't always need that. But right now, instead, got a higher low holding at the midpoint. That midpoint is the most important price heading into the rest of the session here, 40.89 quarter. Holding that midpoint would suggest further strength to the upside, where this thing bounces back toward 50 or 75s. A failure to hold that level could open up a big continuation to the downside, where we could even close much lower for the day, hunting lower. So that's going to be the key pivot to watch as we head throughout the rest of the session. Here's a look at the NQ. Similar price action for the NQ, very bullish overall after the pre-market bounce here. That was an 8 a.m. bounce where price eventually closed strong by the end of the session. This one also came just shy of reaching the previous week's low, and instead developing this higher low here in a downtrending market with the bearish PEMA trigger zone still intact. For now, you can see that price is holding the previous session's midpoint right there. That's 13,098. Call it 13,100. That's also right where the previous low is for the month and the previous quarter's close. So it's a lot of confluence at 13,100 here today. We could be looking at price holding that area for a shot at higher highs here and into the 13.5s or beyond. Obviously, this downtrend has remained intact. Can it break and turn this thing around? Otherwise, a failure to hold this level on a closing basis, a daily closing basis today, would be indicative of another round of weakness down below. So continue to watch 13,100 heading into the rest of the session. Taking a look here at crude oil. Again, crude had a shot here to get much higher, but just had to flush first. After the flush back down through the previous lows below 63, we didn't have the most tremendous rejection. We did bounce. We saw bounce into the close, or at least throughout much of the morning. That took it into the 63.70s, but it really couldn't finish very, very strong. Couldn't close above the previous month's close, couldn't close above the day's midpoint, couldn't get back above the previous session's low. So it had a fairly weak close. You see today here already trading in the lower half of yesterday's range. So this market right now remains weak here on a 3-day basis. It's a rather wide 3-day range right now. Again, you can see kind of an expanding deal going on here. The key level to continue to watch, though, remains this lower line here, which has been important here. Can it get back above that line? But really, this midpoint right there, that's the previous month's mid. We're coming into it here for a test. That level would suggest holding. A failure to hold that level would open up a return back to the previous month's low as deep as 57.63. So right now this market here is coming up to the last line of support. That support zone right there will be very important. Again, coming into about 61.50 or so is that level. Let's hover right over there. 61.55s, 54s. So right in that area could be the final bounce point before this thing heads higher. Until then, we got to find ourselves a strong low to get behind, and no strong low has been seen just yet. All right, lastly, taking a look here at gold futures. You'll see with gold here, this one has remained bullish. This one's gotten a high now of 1891.30. So it has blown through our initial target zone of 1850 to 1875. Gotten through that area, remains in a very strong uptrending market. We may see a bit more of a pullback ahead. This is very typical of what it's been doing lately. Explode higher, kind of hold, a little bit of pullback here, here, drop into the PEMA trigger zone and go. So we still may see some of that here, but the trend remains very bullish. There's clearly a flight to safety here in the form of gold. We've recovered many important key levels here, starting with 1765, 1800, and now we're pushing onward toward 1900 with a shot at 1960 still ahead. Any pullback, again, as deep as 1840 could still be a buying opportunity for a continuation toward 1900 and above. All right, that is it for now. We'll see how this plays out the rest of the session. Good luck, trade well, and I'll see you in the trading room. Take care.